Show that on TV. Thanks, Gene.
That was in a museum. Look, the oldest profession was one day at the dawn of man. That first Australopithecine woke up in a cave, the female, and she's looking out, and the first ice age is about to come, and it's, gee, I don't like that white stuff. It's cold, and there's no food, and the water is frozen up. So she turns to her male companion, Ugg, probably his name, Ugg.
Ugg.
Yeah, and she says to him, "Tell you what, why don't you go risk your hairy out there, or risk life and limb, and you go kill one of those things and bring me back some of that delicious mastodon meat." She says that in essence when she's grunting. "And when you bring some of that, I'll trade you some of this for some of that." There and then, before culture, language, currency, before marriage, before anything, the oldest profession was born. The monetization of her sexuality.
Well, I find it fascinating, and I'm just curious if you've been getting different responses from men and women, and what they might be.
Well, men always know the truth. Women delude themselves. Women actually have fantasy figures, no matter how old you get, no matter how mature you get.
You mean not just you?
Well, no, your fantasy figures actually don't exist. Ours do. Yours involves a man with armor, and he's on a white horse, and he only wants you. That's even more of a fantasy figure than Santa Claus. Men's fantasy figures are right down the street at Scores.
Well, it's easy to get there.
That's
I
correct.
mean, you can't just call a guy on a horse
But they
to show
can
up.
actually get their fantasy figure. You will never have your fantasy figure. There is no Mr. Right. There's no guy on a shining horse. Why would he ride a horse? Why would he wear armor? And why would he only want you?
Well, on that note, we're going to be back in a moment with more of Gene Simmons right after this.
Hi, I'm Stephen Jenkins, and we're Third Eye Blind. Don't miss us next week here on Private Sessions.
Brad is The Cleaner, an all-new episode, Tuesday at 10 on A&E.
Now, more with Gene Simmons on Private Sessions.
Now, you know, all the other stuff I told you about men and women, stuff like that, ignore everything I said. Put on your high heels, put on your lipstick and your perfume, and just assume that he's there just for you.
I like the sound of that. Thank you.
I thought you would.
All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit here and go back to the beginning for Gene Simmons. I wanted to start off by talking...
My mother. Not because she's my mother, because not all mothers are good. They really aren't. We have this kind of wide sweeping, yeah, it's your mom, you gotta love her. No, actually, she deserves it. She raised me by myself because my father, like a lot of men out there, don't deserve to walk on the ground that she walks on. We are lesser human beings. Men run out on their families, and my father ran out on me and the family when I was
about...
about
5?
I was about 6.
5 or 6.
And, you know, he went on to get married 4 or 5 other times, and I don't think an evil man, but men have a horrific record of making a commitment and sticking by it. Their intrinsic sort of wanderingness takes over, and they become selfish and move on. And I believe in what you say. I believe that what I say, I should be held accountable to. And if I make a commitment to stay with my kids for the rest of their lives, that's where I'm going to be. I'm not going to turn into my father. Institutions are okay, but within those institutions, you have to figure out your path to happiness, because marriage is not a guarantee of anything. But I want to stay with Shannon because I want to stay, not because I have to. And which is what a relationship should be about. You should be together if you want to, and if you don't want to, part as friends.
So it's safe to say that Mom is okay with your current situation.
She adores me. I am the king.
What does she feel about you not being married?
She's clear about it. She understands my moral sense about what I think is important, and my mother's marriages didn't work. She was married twice. I lived with my mother until I was about 18 or 9, actually even later.
Well, it's funny you say that, because you guys moved here when you were about 9, and you didn't even speak English. You moved
Not a
from
word.
Israel to Queens.
And I'd never heard of anything I never saw a television set. The first time I saw a poster was Santa Claus smoking, you know, a cigarette with a reindeer and the stuff. And
You didn't even know what it was, did you?
I never heard of Christ or Christians. I thought it was a rabbi, a guy with a big beard smoking a cigarette. I'm going, oh, that's a rabbi. He must be right because he got the fur on the thing. And later I found out there was a guy whose name was Jesus Christ and that he was Jewish. I said, of course he was Jewish. He lived with his mother until he was 33 years old. Of course he's a Jewish man.
So when did music come into play here? And was your mom the one who gave you your first guitar?
My mom gave me all of it.
Yeah.
You're leading the witness, Judge Ito, but I'll take it. You're correct.
I've been accused of worse.
Really? I was watching the Ed Sullivan Show the way millions of others had, and this variety show, before you guys were born, had a group on called the Beatles, who I'd never heard of, and I was fascinated. First I was turned off because I thought their haircuts were silly, and I said, nah, they look like monkeys. And my mother came in and she said, nah, they look like monkeys. And at that moment, there was a singularity. At that moment I realized that because my mom thought they weren't uncool is what made them cool.
Ooh,
By
right.
these, I formed a band called Sounds. We played locally. I played an instrument. I just sang, barely. And it looked like that. Everything's a question. You know, just be, you know, just mimic what you hear. What time is it? It's all right. It's a bit of a... here I am with my fingers to the bone all day. You just mimic. You don't have to be an original. It's nowadays over. Just mimic, and you'll get by. And initially, I sang, "When the rain comes, it's really down." Oh, that sounds just like that. And then the chicks would come over, chicks and checks. Chicks.
Hey, that should be the album.
I like that. Except there are no more albums. But you know,
Or the next book.
the next book.
All right. We got to take a break for a minute, and I have to towel off. We're talking with Gene Simmons here on Private Sessions. Don't go anywhere. You don't want to miss it. The demon's in the house.
Mm-hmm. Kiss was designed to be the Beatles on steroids.
Idle hands.
How's the first 10 minutes?